Charles Sobhraj, born the 6th of April 1944, is a French thief, fraudster and serial killer of Vietnamese and Indian origin who preyed on Western tourists, primarily beatniks, throughout the hippie trail of Southeast Asia during the 1970s. He was best known as the Bikini Killer due to the attire of his victims, as well as the Splitting Killer and the Serpent, due to his skill at deception and evasion. Sobhraj allegedly committed at least a dozen murders and was convicted and jailed in India from 1976 to 1997. After his release, he retired as a celebrity in Paris. Sobhraj later returned to Nepal in 2003, where he was arrested, tried, and received a life sentence. Unlike most violent offenders, Charles Sobhraj did not seem to commit his murders out of uncontrollable, deep-seated violent impulses which many serial killers experience. It was more perceived as a byproduct of his audacious and venturesome lifestyle, yet he is still widely believed to have an antisocial personality disorder. He had an intense hatred of hippies, and many of his murders reflected this. He was described as devilishly handsome, and did not refrain from using his attractiveness to his advantage in his criminal career. This, as well as his cunning and cultured personality, ensured his celebrity status long before his release from prison. He enjoyed his fame, charging large sums for interviews and film rights. He has been the subject of 4 biographies, 3 documentaries and a Bollywood movie titled Main or Charles. Sobhraj's return to Nepal, where he was still eagerly sought by authorities, is thought to be the result of his yearning for attention and overconfidence in his own intellect. Early years. Charles Sobhraj was born as Hachend Anani Guramak Charles Sobhraj to Vietnamese shop girl Tran Lone Phung, and Indian Sindhi businessman Sobhraj Hachend Anani, who was based in Saigon. His parents were divorced and his father deserted the family. Stateless at first, Sobhraj was adopted by his mother's new boyfriend, a French army lieutenant stationed in French Indochina. There he was neglected in favor of the couple's later children. However, Sobhraj continued to move back and forth between Indochina and France with the family. As a teenager, he began to commit petty crimes and received his first jail sentence for burglary in 1963, serving time at Poissy prison near Paris. While imprisoned, Sobhraj eagerly manipulated prison officials into granting him special favors, such as being allowed to keep books in his cell. Around the same time, he met and endeared himself to Félix d'Escougnes, a wealthy young man in prison volunteer. After being paroled, Sobhraj moved in with d'Escougnes and shared his time moving between the high society of Paris and the criminal underworld. He began accumulating riches through a series of burglaries and scams. During this time, Sobhraj met and began a passionate relationship with Chantal Compagnon, a young Parisian woman from a conservative family. Sobhraj proposed marriage to Compagnon, but was arrested later the same day for attempting to evade police while driving a stolen vehicle. He was sentenced to 8 months in prison, yet Chantal remained supportive throughout the entirety of his sentence. Sobhraj and Chantal were wed upon his release. Sobhraj, along with a pregnant Chantal, left France in 1970 for Asia to escape arrest. After traveling through Eastern Europe with fake documents, robbing tourists whom they befriended along the way, Sobhraj arrived in Mumbai later the same year. Here, Chantal gave birth to a baby girl, Asha. In the meantime, Sobhraj resumed his criminal lifestyle, running a car theft and smuggling operation. Sobhraj's growing profits went towards his budding gambling addiction. In 1973, Sobhraj was arrested and imprisoned after an unsuccessful armed robbery attempt on a jewelry store at Hotel Ashoka. Sobhraj was able to escape, with Chantal's help, due to faking illness, but was recaptured shortly thereafter. Sobhraj borrowed money for bail from his father, and soon after fled to Kabul. There, the couple began to rob tourists on the hippie trail, only to be arrested once again. Sobhraj escaped in the same way he had in India, feigning illness and drugging the hospital guard. Sobhraj then fled to Iran, leaving his family behind. Chantal, although still loyal to Sobhraj, but wishing to leave their criminal past behind, returned to France and vowed never to see him again. Sobhraj spent the next 2 years on the run, using as many as 10 stolen passports. He passed through various countries in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Sobhraj was joined by his younger half-brother, Andrei, in Istanbul. Sobhraj and Andrei quickly became partners in crime, participating in various criminal activities in both Turkey and Greece. The duo were eventually arrested in Athens. After an identity switch hoax went awry, Sobhraj managed to escape, but his half-brother was left behind. Andrei was turned over to the Turkish police by Greek authorities and served an 18-year sentence. Murders on the run again. Sobhraj financed his lifestyle by posing as either a gem salesman or drug dealer to impress and befriend tourists, whom he then defrauded. In Thailand, Sobhraj met Marie-André Leclerc, 1945–1984, from Lévis, Quebec, Canada, a tourist looking for adventure. Dominated by Sobhraj, she quickly became his most devoted follower, turning a blind eye to his crimes and his philandering with local women. Sobhraj gathered followers by gaining their loyalty. A typical scam was to help his target out of difficult situations. In one case, he helped 2 former French policemen, Yannick and Jacques, recover missing passports that Sobhraj himself had actually stolen. In another scheme, Sobhraj provided shelter to a Frenchman, Dominique Renelot, who appeared to be suffering from dysentery. Sobhraj had actually poisoned Renelot. He was finally joined by a young Indian man, A.J. Chowdhury, a fellow criminal who became Sobhraj's second-in-command. Sobhraj and Chowdhury committed their first known murders in 1975. Most of the victims had spent some time with the duo before their deaths and were, according to investigators, recruited by Sobhraj and Chowdhury to join the pair in their crimes. Sobhraj claimed that most of his murders were really accidental drug overdoses, but investigators state that the victims had threatened to expose Sobhraj, which was his motive for murder. The first victim was a young woman from Seattle. Teresa Knowlton, named Jenny Bolivar in the book Serpentine, was found drowned in a tidal pool in the Gulf of Thailand, wearing a flowered bikini. It was only months later that Knowlton's autopsy, as well as forensic evidence, proved that her drowning, originally believed to be a swimming accident, was murder. The next victim was a young nomadic Sephardic Jew, Vitaly Hakim, whose burnt body was found on the road to the Pattaya resort, where Sobhraj and his growing clan were staying. Dutch students Henk Bintanja, 29, and his fiancée Cornelia Hemker, 25, were invited to Thailand after meeting Sobhraj in Hong Kong. They, like many others, were poisoned by Sobhraj, who then nurtured them back to health in order to gain their obedience. As they recovered, Sobhraj was visited by his previous victim Hakim's French girlfriend, Charmaine Carew, who had come to investigate her boyfriend's disappearance. Fearing exposure, Sobhraj and Chowdhury quickly hustled the couple out. Their bodies were found strangled and burned on the 16th of December 1975. Soon after, Carew was found drowned and wearing a similar styled swimsuit to that of Sobhraj's earlier victim, Teresa Knowlton. Although the murders of both women were not connected by investigations at the time, they would later earn Sobhraj the nickname, the Bikini Killer. On the 18th of December, the day the bodies of Bintanja and Hemker were identified, Sobhraj and Leclerc entered Nepal using the deceased pair's passports. They met in Nepal and, on the 22nd of December, murdered Lauren Carriere, 26, from Canada, and Connie Bronzik, 29, from the U.S. The 2 victims were incorrectly identified in some sources as Ladi Dupar and Annabella Tremont. Sobhraj and Leclerc returned to Thailand, using their latest victims' passports before their bodies could be identified. Upon his return to Thailand, Sobhraj discovered that his 3 French companions had started to suspect him of serial murder, having found documents belonging to the murder victims. Sobhraj's former companions then fled to Paris after notifying local authorities. Sobhraj's next destination was either Varanasi or Calcutta, where he murdered Israeli scholar Avoni Jacob simply to obtain Jacob's passport. Sobhraj used the passport to travel with Leclerc and Chowdhury, first to Singapore, then to India, and, in March 1976, returning to Bangkok, despite knowing that the authorities there sought him. The clan was interrogated by Thai policemen in connection with the murders, but released because authorities feared that the negative publicity accompanying a murder trial would harm the country's tourist industry. Meanwhile, Dutch diplomat Herman Nippenberg was investigating the murders of Bintanja and Hemker. Nippenberg had some knowledge of, and had possibly even met, Sobhraj, although the latter's true identity was still unknown to the diplomat, who continued gathering evidence. With the help of a neighbor of Sobhraj, Nippenberg built a case against him. He was eventually given police permission to search Sobhraj's apartment, a full month after the suspect had left the country. Nippenberg found evidence, including victims' documents and passports, as well as poisons and syringes. The trio's next stop was Malaysia, where Chowdhury was sent to steal gems. Chowdhury was observed delivering the gems to Sobhraj. This was the last time he was ever seen, and neither Chowdhury nor his remains were ever found. It is believed that Sobhraj murdered his former accomplice before leaving Malaysia to continue his and Leclerc's roles as gem salesman in Geneva. A source later claimed to have sighted Chowdhury in West Germany, but the claim appeared unsubstantiated. The search for Chowdhury continues. Soon back in Asia, Sobhraj started to build a new criminal family, starting with two lost Western women, Barbara Smith and Mary Ellen Eater, in Bombay. Sobhraj's next victim was a Frenchman, Jean-Luc Solomon, whose poisoning during the robbery, simply intended to incapacitate him, left him dead. In July 1976 in New Delhi, Sobhraj, joined by his three-woman criminal clan, tricked a group of French postgraduate students into accepting them as tour guides. Sobhraj then drugged them by giving them poison pills, which he told them were anti-dysentery medicine. When the drugs took effect more quickly than Sobhraj had anticipated, the students began to fall unconscious. 3 of the students realized what Sobhraj had done. They overpowered him and contacted the police, leading to his capture. During interrogation, Sobhraj's accomplices, Smith and Eater, quickly buckled and confessed. Sobhraj was charged with the murder of Solomon, and all 4 were sent to Tihar prison, New Delhi, while awaiting formal trial. Prison time. Smith and Eater attempted suicide in prison during the 2 years before their trial. Sobhraj had entered with precious gems concealed in his body and was experienced in bribing captors and living comfortably in jail. He turned his trial into a spectacle, hiring and firing lawyers at whim, bringing in his recently paroled brother Andre to assist, and eventually going on a hunger strike. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Leclerc was found guilty of drugging the French students, but was later paroled and returned to Canada when she developed ovarian cancer. She was still claiming her innocence and was reportedly still loyal to Sobhraj when she died at her home in April 1984. Sobhraj's systematic bribery of prison guards at Tihar reached outrageous levels. He led a life of luxury inside the jail, with television and gourmet food, having befriended both guards and prisoners. He gave interviews to Western authors and journalists, such as Oz Magazine's Richard Neville in the late 1970s, and Ellen Dawson in 1984. He freely talked about his murders, while never actually admitting to them, and pretended that his actions were in retaliation against Western imperialism in Asia. When Sobhraj's sentence was to end, the 20-year Thai arrest warrant against him would still have been valid, thereby affecting his extradition and almost certain execution. So in March 1986, in his 10th year in prison, Sobhraj threw a big party for his guards and fellow inmates, drugged them with sleeping pills and walked out of the jail. Inspector Madhu Kurzend of the Mumbai police apprehended Sobhraj in a Coquero restaurant in Goa. His prison term was prolonged by 10 years, just as he had hoped. On the 17th of February 1997, 52-year-old Sobhraj was released with most warrants, evidence and even witnesses against him long lost. Without any country to extradite him to, Indian authorities let him return to France. Celebrity and recapture. Sobhraj retired to a comfortable life in suburban Paris. He hired a publicity agent and charged large sums of money for interviews and photographs. He is said to have charged over $15 million, according to advocate and former police inspector Biswalal Shrestha, who investigated the case, framed the charge sheet and registered the case in court for the rights to a movie based on his life. On the 17th of September 2003, Sobhraj was seen in a street of Kathmandu by a journalist. The journalist quickly reported this to the Nepalese authorities, who arrested him 2 days later in the casino of the Yak and Yeti Hotel. Sobhraj's motives for returning to Nepal remain unknown. He was sentenced to life imprisonment by the Kathmandu District Court on the 20th of August 2004 for the murders of Bronzik and Carriere in 1975. Most of the photocopy evidence used against him in this case was from that gathered by Nippenberg, the Dutch diplomat, and Interpol. He appealed against the conviction, claiming that he was sentenced without trial. His lawyer also announced that Chantal, Sobhraj's wife in France, was filing a case before the European Court of Human Rights against the French government for refusing to provide him with any assistance. Sobhraj's conviction was confirmed by the Patent Court of Appeals in 2005. Current status. In late 2007, news media reported that Sobhraj's lawyer had appealed to the then French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, for intervention with Nepal. In 2008, Sobhraj announced his engagement to a Nepali woman Nahida Biswas, who later participated in the reality show Big Boss. On the 7th of July 2008, issuing a press release through his fiancée Nahida, he claimed that he was never convicted of murder by any court and asked the media not to refer to him as a serial killer. It was claimed that Sobhraj married his fiancée on the 9th of October 2008 in jail on Batadashame, a Nepalese festival. On the following day, Nepalese jail authorities dismissed the claim of his marriage. They said that Nahida and her family had been allowed to conduct a tikka ceremony, along with the relatives of hundreds of other prisoners. They further claimed that it was not a wedding but part of the ongoing Dashain festival, when elders put the vermilion mark on the foreheads of those younger to them to signify their blessings. In July 2010, the Supreme Court of Nepal postponed the verdict on an appeal filed by Sobhraj against a district court's verdict sentencing him to life imprisonment for the murder of American backpacker Connie Jo Bronzik in 1975. Sobhraj had appealed against the district court's verdict in 2006, calling it unfair and accusing the judges of racism while handing out the sentence. On the 30th of July 2010, the Supreme Court upheld the verdict issued by the district court in Kathmandu of a life sentence for the murder of Connie Jo Bronzik and another year, plus a Rs 2,000 fine for entering Nepal illegally. The seizure of all Sobhraj's properties was also ordered by the court. Sobhraj's wife Nahida and mother-in-law Shakuntala Thapa, a lawyer, expressed dissatisfaction with the verdict, with Thapa claiming that Sobhraj had been denied justice and that the judiciary is corrupt. They were charged and sent to judicial custody for contempt of court because of these remarks. On the 18th of September 2014, Sobhraj was convicted in Tibactapur District Court of the murder of Canadian tourist Laurent Carriere. In 2018, Sobhraj was in critical condition, and had been operated on multiple times. He has received several open-heart surgeries, and is scheduled for more. In popular culture, Sobhraj has been the subject of 2 non-fiction books, Serpentine, 1979 by Thomas Thompson and The Life and Crimes of Charles Sobhraj, 1980 by Richard Neville and Julie Clark. Neville and Clark's book was the basis for a 1989 made-for-TV movie, Shadow of the Cobra. The 2015 Bollywood film Maynard Charles, directed by Prawal Raman and Scissor Network, is reportedly based on Charles Sobhraj's escape from Tihar Jail, New Delhi. The film was initially produced by Pooja Bhatt, but due to differences midway into the shoot, Pooja left the film. On the TV series Law and Order: Criminal Intent, the character of Nicole Wallace, portrayed by Olivia d'Abo, is loosely based on Marie-Andre Leclerc. In the episode Slither, which was originally to be titled Serpentine, Michael York appears as Bernard Fremont, Wallace's mentor and former partner in crime, who is based on Sobhraj. In 2019, Netflix and BBC announced the production of an 8-part series called The Serpent, focusing on Sobhraj's capture and trial. See also Adnan Patrawala murder case, Auto Shankar Gita and Sanjay Chopra kidnapping case, Joshi Iyengar serial murders, murder of Jessica Lal Neeraj Grover murder case, Nirupama Pathak death case, Nitish Katara murder case, 2008 Noida double murder case, Noida serial murders, Raman Raghav Snehal Gawar murder, Stoneman. References. Bibliography: Neville, Richard, Clark, Julie, 1980. The Life and Crimes of Charles Sobhraj, 3rd ed. Pan Books, Australia. ISBN 0-330-27001-X. Thompson, Thomas, 1979. Serpentine. Carroll and Groff Publishers. ISBN 0-7867-0749-6. Clark, Julie, Neville, Richard, 1989. Shadow of the Cobra. Penguin Books Limited. ISBN 978-014012937-3. External links: Charles Sobhraj profile, biography.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Sobhraj's past revived via his wife Nihita. Big Boss 5, AKendraOnline.com, accessed 1 February 2016. SC upholds Sobhraj conviction. MYREPUBLICA.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Cop who investigated 1975 murders settles score as lawyer. MYREPUBLICA.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Inspector who foiled Sobhraj. HindustanTimes.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Return of the Serpent. Time.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Mark Gribbon, All About Charles Sobhraj, Crime Library, accessed 1 February 2016. Asia's most infamous serial killer gets life. Goasia.about.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Shadow of the Cobra, IMDb.com, accessed 1 February 2016. Madhur Bhandarkar to make Sobhraj film. Times of India. IndiaTimes.com, the 11th of June 2009.